What is going on, my ODSTs? It's Perplexality here with another Art of War video. This is chapter 11 out of 13, so we're pretty much right there, guys. We're right at the end, so I hope you guys are sticking with this, and I hope you guys will tell your friends about it and kind of get them in on the Halo strategy. I'm going to start another series after this, but we're going to go ahead and finish this up real quickly. And this is the longest chapter, so of course this has the longest video. This gameplay doesn't have too much to do with the chapter, but it gave us a long enough gameplay for us to actually kind of talk about the stuff in the Art of War. And I actually had to cut out large sections of this because a lot of it applied to how Sun Tzu lived, sort of similar to the last chapter, but it's still going to have a lot for us to talk about, especially the opening part. And a little bit about the gameplay. I'm playing with that gamer guy, 10047. You may notice him. He works with me on the BTB. We did a dual commentary earlier. But this is just some dual doubles flag that we were playing. I actually never played on this map before, so I was kind of figuring out what I was doing as I was going. I figured it out kind of quickly. And we were just kind of playing doubles, and this is a pretty good game. It comes down to the wire at the end. And also I wanted to give a little shout out to T Graphic Designs. If you notice, I got a new avatar, I've gotten a bunch of new stuff lately, some thumbnails and everything. He designed all those for me. He messaged me up and saying he wanted to go ahead and contribute some content. And I went ahead and kind of added that. And you can see him in my recommended channels on the side of my channel. You can go ahead and click on him. I think he does a lot of channel art for a lot of guys. So it's really great that he went ahead and did that, and definitely good and go check out his channel. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into the commentary because this is a lot and you're going to have to take in a lot of it. We're actually going to skip the first one because it basically lists different types of ground. And you may say, like, we talked about terrain last time. Well, we're basically going to go back over that again in this video. But basically, it's going to be a bit more in depth about different types of ground. And there's going to be 9 types of ground. He says, when a chieftain is fighting in his own territory, it is dispersive ground. And you'll just want to keep track of what these mean. When he is penetrated into hostile territory, but to no great distance, it is facile ground. This is when basically you're on the enemy side of the map, but not very far. Ground, the possession of which imports great advantage either side, is contentious ground. This would be like top mid of the map, where you control an area that would give you an advantage to hold in overall map control and whatnot. Ground on which each side has liberty of movement is open ground. This would be like the bottom of maps and stuff where there isn't a lot of resistance and it's easy to go through. Ground on which forms the key to 3 contiguous states, so that he who occupies the first has most of the empire at his command, is the ground of intersecting highways. Basically, this is just saying you want to control this so you can access other areas very easily. This again would be like top mid of the map or something like that because it's very easy for you to move from top mid to other positions. When an army is penetrating to the heart of hostile country, leaving a number of fortified cities at its rear, this is serious ground. So basically, what this is saying is, it'll say you're already at the enemy flag, you already control a lot of it, then that's going to be serious ground. It's going to be ground that where you have a lot of people behind you and you're not in the best position to fight. Mountain forests, rugged steeps, marshes and ferns. All country that is hard to traverse, this is difficult ground. This is basically an area that's just kind of hard to move around. Maybe areas that require special jumps or something, or just something that you have to walk around. Ground which is reached through narrow gorges, and, from which we can only retire by tortuous paths, so that a small number of the enemy would suffice to crush a large body of our men, is hemmed-in ground. This is basically saying at our back we only have an alleyway per se, and the only way to kind of get out of wherever we're at is to kind of go for that alleyway. So it's kind of bad to be in that. It's called hemmed-in situations because you're basically going to be killed if you go into tight corners and stuff. You're going to be kind of siphoned out through it, and it's very bad for you to go into alleyways because it doesn't take a lot of people to handle large numbers of enemy forces if you kind of get a choke point. So that's what basically this is talking about, and it's kind of hard to convey. He says, ground on which can only be saved from destruction by fighting without delay is desperate ground. So basically, situations where the only way you're going to win a game or something is if you go immediately on a fight. On dispersive ground, therefore, fight not. On facile ground, halt not. On contentious ground, attack not. Dispersive ground is your own ground, so he says, try not to fight on your own side of the map. You really want to push it to the enemy side, and you want to just kind of keep them out and bide back. He also says on facile ground, halt knot. This is basically ground where you're a little ways into the enemy base. So just if you're already a little ways into the enemy base and the ground that you're at gives you no great advantage, you want to keep moving. You want to keep kind of pushing in there and get in the enemy's comfort zone. And on a contentious ground where if the enemy has the advantage, you don't want to attack him. And this is a bit of a summary from what we talked about last time. He says on open ground, do not try to block the enemy's way. Like I said, open ground is where you can move freely. So basically, if enemies have very free movement throughout the map and stuff like that, you don't want to really try and block them too much, because you're just going to try and funnel the enemies in a way that where they can't be funneled, and it's very hard to control them. So you want to be kind of conscientious of that, of not trying to channel enemies in places that you can't control. Wait for them to get to an area that you can control, and then funnel them through. On ground of intersecting highways, join hands with your allies. So basically on ground where it's easy to control a lot of the map and get from one place to another, you want to have a lot of allies with you to help control this, because this will be a very key position. So if you are on top mid, we want to make sure at least someone can see you and kind of help you kind of control that area of the map. On serious ground, gather and plunder. On difficult ground, keep steadily on the march. So whenever you are on serious ground and you're very far behind enemy lines, you want to be attacking and kind of ravaging what they have and kind of killing them from behind. And when you're on difficult ground, basically ground that's very hard to fight on, I'm going to go back and actually look at that. On difficult ground that is somewhere hard to maneuver through, you don't want to stop. So definitely is basically all this is saying is that you want to keep moving in ground where you don't have the advantage, and when you are behind enemy lines and you have a chance to be a nuisance, don't hesitate to attack and kind of mess them up once you are behind lines, or gather what you need. Like if you were at the enemy flag, you definitely want to grab that or at least annoy them from behind their flag until you have an opportunity to get it. On hemmed in ground, resort to stratagem. On desperate ground, fight. So on hemmed in ground, you guys remember it's kind of ground where you can easily be pushed into precipices or hard areas to control. And what's actually going to happen here is you have to resort to stratagem. If you guys remember from a few chapters back, stratagem is gauging how many people you want to attack with. Like if you outnumber 10 to 1, definitely attack. Stuff like that, offer surrender, things like that nature. So when you are on hemmed in ground and they have an opportunity to kill you with a small force, you really want to do some calculations to make sure that you guys can handle whatever they're throwing at you and you have the advantage. That's basically what it's saying on desperate ground fight. Desperate ground, again, is a ground which you can only win at by attacking immediately. Just attack immediately is what he's saying. So if you guys are in a flag game and you're down and you just really need to come back and you really only have like this last chance to pull it off, then go for it. You just got to put all you have into it. And that's what he's saying. He's saying don't sit back and just give up. And then we're going to go on to lines 15 through 17. Those who were called skillful leaders of old knew how to drive the wedge between the enemy's front and rear, to prevent cooperation between the large and small divisions, to hinder the good groups from rescuing the bad, and officers from relaying their men. So basically he's saying you want to control the middle of what their kind of center of command is, whether that be top mid or whether that be back in their base. You want to make sure that they aren't able to help each other, much like how you do want to help your teammates. You want to make sure their teammates can't help each other so that you have an advantage and keep them separated. He says, when the enemy's men were united, they managed to keep them in disorder. So even then, while the enemy is together, you want to kind of keep things chaotic and make sure they aren't very organized and know exactly what's going on. Hit them from different angles and stuff like that. He says, in line 17, he says, when it was to their advantage, they made a forward move. Otherwise, they stopped still. And this kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, of driving a wedge between enemies and kind of keeping attention to what is advantageous and what is not advantageous. These three things are sort of related. It's kind of funny how we group them. But basically, all he's saying here is that you always want to be catering to what is advantageous to you. If it's not good for you to push forward, then you definitely don't want to push forward. You definitely want to stay back and just wait for the enemy. And the key to that is kind of recognizing when it goes. And how it relates to a lot of these other things is you want to kind of work on controlling the situation. So you have to learn to kind of pay attention to what they're up to and what they're doing. Like how it's not advantageous to push someone on that corner right there, which I'm trying to relate this to the gameplay. but I did nade the corner and push the guy out, then I shot him, that's much more advantageous to do. And, oh, I got killed there. But we're going to keep going. So we're going to go to line 29. We're going to skip a lot of this stuff. He says, the skillful tactician, which may be linked to the Shaozhan. Now, the Shaozhan is a snake that is found on the Chuang Mountains. Strike at its head, and you will be attacked by its tail. Strike at its tail, and you will be attacked by its head. Strike at its middle, and you will be attacked by both head and tail. So basically, he's saying there's an old Chinese legend about a snake called Shaozhan, and however he attacks is that both ends of him are aggressive ends. He basically can attack with both his tail and his head. So it's impractical to really attack either. You know, if you're trying to get snakes, you usually just pin their heads down and then you'll be fine. But you can't really just pin the snake's head down because they'll attack you with both. And grabbing the middle will just end up getting you both killed. Now he goes on to say, asked if an army can be made to imitate the Shaozhan, I should answer yes. For the men of Wu, and the Wu is the country that Sun Tzu actually led, and the men of Yao are enemies, and Yao is actually the country that he battled and conquered. Yet if they are crossing a river in the same boat and are caught by the storm, they will come to each other's assistance just as the left hand helps the right. So basically what he's saying is that it's important for teams to work together and work for common goals. You and your teammates both want to win a game, right? So if you guys both want to win a game, then it's important for you to help each other out, not just kind of look out for your own interests. Because your interests are your teammates' interests. So you definitely want to be coming to each other's assistance, recognize when they're in danger, and know how to help. Much like the sinking of the boat with the Wu and Yao. Which I know is kind of an elaborated story, and I do want to do a background story on Sun Tzu at some point. But it is kind of some necessary background information. Now, we're going to go ahead and go on to pretty much 65 to the end. This is going to finish up the Art of War chapter 11 for us. But he goes on to say, if the enemy leaves the door open, you must rush in. So basically saying that if you are on the offense and you see an opportunity, take it. How we played this flag game that you're watching was we only pulled flag when we knew that both of the enemies were dead. So that's basically our window of opportunity. Once that was my strategy all along, was to wait for when both of them are dead, then pull. If you pull while one of them's alive and you're even, or while they have two people, the flag carrier is really less than one full player, so it's hard to play with him. So it's very important that you pulled only when you had the advantage, and not when it was even or when you had the disadvantage, which would be when they have two people alive or one person alive. So you have to make sure that you have more people alive than the enemy team, especially by a great number. In flag on throwdown, I'll usually only pull if we have 3 people alive, or we have 3 more people alive, where they have 1 and we have 4. We have 3 and they have none. Now he says, forestall your opponent by seizing whatever he holds dear, and subtly contrive his time to time his arrival on the ground. So basically, he's just saying that if the enemy is very protective of something like the flag, you want to hold that out as a bait to prevent him from doing something. Maybe grabbing the flag to prevent them from grabbing a flag cap. Walk in the path defined by rule and accommodate yourself to the enemy until you can fight a decisive battle. And this is basically what he's saying is you want to stay aloof from the enemy. You don't ever want to fight anyone in a straight up fight. You always want to sit back and wait for an opportunity, and as soon as you have the opportunity, you want to go and move with it. Much like I was saying earlier, you don't ever try and pull the flag instantly. You wait till you have an advantage, then you pull it, even if the opportunity presents itself. So if the opportunity presents itself to fight someone, you don't have to fight someone until it's basically set up and it's over. You don't have to go ahead and attack someone until you know you can win the fight, when they drop their guard for some strange reason. Maybe they're reloading or whatnot. He says, at first, then, exhibit the coyness of a maiden until the enemy gives you an opening. Afterwards, illuminate the rapidity of the running hare, and it will be too late for the enemy to oppose you. So basically, again, he's reiterating, wait for an opening, and then once you see it, attack it. So what we looked at in this is we really reviewed the last chapter and looked at some different grounds and when you actually want to be pushing and how to control enemies. And you also looked at how you want to be separating people and kind of keeping them in different divisions so that you can better control the map and better control the enemy team. Because if you make them bend to your will, then you'll be fine. And he also said that you don't want to strike until you know you can win. This is actually where I pulled that philosophy from. from this book. But it's a very important thing. It's really great for you to know. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching. This has been The Art of War, Chapter 11, called The 9 Situations. And it's very important for you guys to know. I hope you guys will enjoy it. And comment, rate, and subscribe. And hope you guys will stick around for the last 2 chapters coming out soon. But again, I hope you have a great day. ODST, out.